Hi, I'm Hazel. It's Saturday again, which makes it time to sit down and catch up on the WoW news of the week, what I've been up to, and answer some of your questions. Also, happy holidays. There's no way that's going to be meaningfully in the shot. That's not better. Like, if I'm going to be a reindeer, I want to be a good reindeer. Like, I don't want to be a lopsided reindeer. Well then. This week in WoW, we saw some tumultuous Torghast tuning. So this week saw the release of Layer 7 and 8 for Torghast, which are the final levels of difficulty that are going to be available in this patch. And for a little while now, over the last couple of weeks, there's been like some resentment brewing about Torghast, specifically about how it takes a really long time to do. It can be really frustrating if you spend a long time in a Torghast run and then find yourself unable to beat the final boss, and how some classes seem to have a vastly easier time of it than others. With this week and the highest difficulty of Wings now out, that feedback has kind of like boiled into a thing that Blizzard has now decided to address. Ian gave an interview to Polygon, and in it he explained the initial thought process and what they're doing next about the Torghast problem. So the initial reasoning behind the Torghast tuning was that it's kind of meant to last a while. It wasn't ever really expected that everyone would be able to clear it successfully as soon as it became available, but the game really didn't make that clear enough. As a comparison, the Mythic raid is open right now. Mythic Castle Nathria is available, but not everybody expects to be able to just waltz in and go kill Mythic Sire Denathrias. But that same distinction wasn't really all that clear for Torghast, and somebody that made it through layers like 2, 3, 4, you know, and then 5, like, you expect to be able to continue going, and when you hit a wall and you just really can't yet, it feels just impossibly overtuned. So the solution they're going with is some hotfixes to Torghast tuning aimed at making the runs faster and more achievable. These are all largely in, so some examples: the starting anima power should be now better. Your major cooldowns will reset at the end of the floor, just like they would with a raid boss, which is a really big deal for Lust classes in particular. The end of floor caster enemies will spam casts less frequently, so classes that have trouble with interrupts will find those to be less impossible than they have been previously. And layer difficulty has been nerfed across the board with bigger nerfs to higher layers. So the new layer 8 is similar in difficulty to what the old layer 6 was. So for my take on this, the last time I talked about Torghast, I was not having a good time. I quite hated it, although I did have suspicions that it was because I just didn't understand or was bad at it, and that was mostly correct. I think my biggest problem with Torghast initially was that I was kind of in a hurry. I was rushing. There were things I would have rather had been doing, and rushing through Torghast is apparently not the way to go. In the intervening time, I have spent more time with it, and I have come to really enjoy doing my Torghast runs as a solo holy priest. And my biggest complaint has been that they have been taking me, and this is all pre-hotfix, like an hour, even like an hour and 10, hour and 15 minutes to get a full clear done, but I was able to do them, and that challenge of trying to get through progressively harder layers of Torghast and wondering what kind of powers I'm going to get next and whether I'll be able to make it work has been really exciting and fun. I've really actually liked Torghast. It grew on me massively. I definitely benefited from the fact that, especially at first, it was massively easier for solo healers and to some extent solo tanks. So as a holy priest, I'm sure I had an easier time than I heard my rogue friends having, but I managed to solo up to layer 7, and I really liked the way that it made me kind of re-examine the toolkit of my class and pull out buttons that otherwise would never make it out of the spellbook. It made the whole unpruning of Shadowlands feel a little less pointless. I'm excited about the changes, mostly because I'm really looking forward to the runs being a bit shorter. As much as I've enjoyed them, I find myself really needing to set aside like at least an hour for them, and that's just too long, especially given how much other stuff there is to potentially do and use your time on in Shadowlands. That kind of time going towards just Torghast felt a little much for like a mandatory thing. I would prefer to spend that kind of time, you know, because I want to, and not because that's how long it takes for me to finish this thing that I feel like I cannot walk away from. Should be pretty good. I am also looking forward to the Twisting Corridors. I do not think it is out yet. That should be coming in a few weeks, assuming that the weekly campaign quest eventually leads us there. That is a fixed difficulty mode with 18 floors and just cosmetics, so you don't need to do that one for Soul Ash. But completing it and climbing it should be a similar feeling experience, similar vibe to the Mage Tower, that like difficult single player content that you can kind of work towards on your own. And of course you don't have to do it single player, you can of course do it with a group, but I'm really looking forward to pushing Twisting Corridor single player when it eventually comes out, because there's cosmetics in there. And I have developed kind of a thing for the maw rats. I didn't think that I would, because look at them, but then I did, because look at them. I killed a rare in the maw and it dropped me the decaying maw rat pet, who I promptly named Steve, and I'm attached. I don't know what to tell you. Also this week, as mentioned, Mythic Castle Nathria opened and the Race to World First has begun. As of recording this, which I should mention is a day early, Complexity Limit is in the lead. They got their first Sludge Fist kill on Friday the 18th, and they are currently working, as of recording, on Stone Legion Generals. Time will only tell what the weekend has in store. So far, they are the only guild to be 8 of 10, and then you have Method Echo pieces in a version all on 7 of 10. To be transparent, I'm not one to follow the race super closely, but I do kind of like having it on in like the background of the background and like wandering over to the screen just to see what they're up to next. I do think it's really neat how many orgs and guilds are not only racing, but putting on their own broadcasts. It's really cool to see how much content is going out around this. In WoW this week, aside from normal Shadowlands stuff, which has been kind of overwhelming, the weekly vault opened for the first time. I had lots of options, none of them were great. I eventually picked an offhand and then promptly got a weapon that was better in raid, but that's how that goes sometimes. The weekly event from this week, that if you catch this on the weekend, you still have a day or so to finish if you haven't done so yet. The dungeon event for completing 4 mythic dungeons, and those can be mythic zeros, is giving a piece of heroic Castle Nathria loot, and I really lucked out of that one. I got best in slot, or at least optimally statted 213 boots, which I'm real stoked about. So what I ended up doing was I opened my cache to look at the options, and then I made myself not pick one until I had done those 4 mythic zeros to get that heroic piece from the weekly quest, because I didn't want to pick something from my vault and then immediately replace it from the cache. Instead, I thought it would be a much better idea to replace it from raid the following day. But you know, that was kind of cool. I was surprised that turned out to be a heroic piece. And then also in WoW this week, Winter Veil has now started. There is one new collectible with the Winter Veil Pepe now available. This was data mined last year, but it finally made it out of the data dungeon this year, so you can click on Pepe in the tree in Ironforge or Orgrimmar to get your costume. There will of course be a new toy under the tree on the 25th to look forward to, and then lots of old collectibles and achievements to catch up on. So check your collections for Winter Veil stuff if you're missing anything, if you are into that kind of thing. I always enjoy when they put Santa hats on bosses, and the new bosses are no exception. If you have not yet seen it, please feast your eyes upon Winter Veil Sardenathrius with not 1 hat, but 3 little hats, because he needs a little hat for each of his horns. And in my life this week, I had a great time in raid. We full cleared normal, I killed Nathrius and immediately went to go get my legendary because I've been hurting for that. I had enough Soul Ash by that time to make a rank 3 legendary right off the bat, so that saved me, I guess, a little bit of gold, but I have it now, so that's the moral of the story. We spent a long time on Altamore. After full clearing, we got 2 of 10 heroic down, 1 new heroic boss this week, which was Huntsman Altamore, and he was hard. We spent most of our raid night on him, but we got that down, and I have discovered, for some reason, I had this misconception in my head. I thought healers couldn't parse, like, with healing. I think I had conflated parsing and simming, because some sim sources won't sim for healer throughput because healer sims are weird. But I had taken that memory, which may or may not be accurate, I don't know, and I had conflated it with parses, and I just thought healers couldn't parse. And then I was looking through our logs, and then I saw my parses, and then I went, oh no. So I've been digging through WoW Analyzer this week, trying to figure out what to do to be a better healer. It broke my heart by telling me that Renew is a bad button that I only really have an excuse to cast if I'm like moving. And Renew is my favorite button, so that improved my parses a lot when I stopped casting that so much. Also this week, I got to face off against Asmongold in a best of 5 pet battle duel. That was a lot of fun, and I've got a YouTube video coming next week, hopefully, that kind of has all of that, along with some recommendations for beginner pet PvP teams for anybody that wants to get started in pet PvP but keeps getting crushed by Anomalous. And questions from this week. Danielle asks, I'm still not totally clear on if LFR bosses will count on the weekly vault. because if not, that's going to be a big blow to alts. So you may have found this out already because you asked this last week before Tuesday, but I have not seen it firsthand, but I've heard lots of reports that LFR does count on the weekly vault. The pieces it gives will be LFR item level, but there's no need to do both LFR and a higher difficulty if you were going to do a higher difficulty, because killing a boss on multiple difficulties does not count as additional bosses killed for the sake of like the 0 of 7 and the 0 of 10. So if you're doing the raid in normal, you don't have to do LFR. If you're doing the raid in heroic, you don't have to do normal, at least for the sake of the weekly vault. But if it's like you're saying, you know, a character that doesn't raid or a person that doesn't raid with a guild and is only going to do LFR, you can get extra loot from the weekly vault by doing Castle Nathria on LFR. And Jason asks, question about the weekly vault, ignoring raid and PvP, but the mythic one. Say you do one Mists of Tyrannus Scythe plus 6, will the weekly option only be something from Mists? So no, there is a pool of all available dungeon loot that you get access to no matter which keys it was in particular you did. The mythic row will give you random pieces of loot from all of the dungeons, and then the level of key will determine your item level. But if you only did Mists, it's going to offer you loot that could be from everything. So you don't need to worry about like not doing a certain key because you don't want that loot in your pool. That's not a thing. It pulls from everything. That is different than how parts of Nathria work. If you want loot from your weekly vault that includes the Stone Legion Generals table, you need to kill Stone Legion Generals, and same goes for Denathrius. The weekly vault will not offer you Denathrius loot, or it shouldn't anyways, according to reports. It should not offer you Denathrius loot until you have killed Sire Denathrius. The first 8 bosses do not work that way. It can give you any of that stuff no matter which bosses you killed, but you should not be unlocking Generals and Denathrius loot until you've killed those bosses respectively at least one time. That should be a character-specific unlock that you only need to do once. You don't have to kill it every week to have that loot in your table, but it won't start to give you that loot until you've done it at least for the first time on that character. And that has been my week. Thank you very much for watching. If you have any questions that you would like me to answer in a news video, please leave it in the comments and include the word question. Stop by a stream sometime if you like. I do those 6 days a week over on Twitch. This is what the schedule looks like. I appreciate you guys. Happy holiday again, and have a wonderful, wonderful day.